of New Zealand Drum and Bass series, celebrating over 25 years of drum and bass in Aotearoa, New Zealand.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome along. We are back again with another episode of the History of New Zealand Drum and Bass podcast, and joining me right now is a very dear old friend. We go way back. State of mind. It's Pat. How the bloody hell are you, mate?
Good, bruv. How are you?
Good. Well, I should say it's one half a state of mind because Stu's busy with university during lockdown. What the hell's going on?
He has, yeah. So I suppose he obviously before we kind of became full time in music, he was studying law, and he decided before the very first lockdown, before the pandemic, to like go back. It's been kind of like bugging him for years that he hadn't finished it. And he's gone back to finish his law degree sort of part-time whilst still doing state of mind stuff. But yeah, obviously with the pandemic, it's kind of made it slightly difficult for him.
Right. Well, as I was saying, we've known each other nearly nigh on 20 years. We made a tune in like 2003 or something, wasn't it? First time we made a tune?
Yeah, I think so. That would have been, is that 2000?
I was living in the far north. I'd sort of just started I was actually winding down my drum and bass career to be a dad for a few years, and while my kid was sort of growing up, I wasn't really making any D&B. And then when I came back, I made a tune with you guys, and I made a tune with the Upbeats, and made tunes with Maddie and Evan again, you know. But
that's right. And then we did another, because I remember we would we started promoting shows. I was like, I wanted to get you on the lineups. And you'd moved up. You were like working on boats up north or something like that.
Yeah.
And I remember I was like, right, I'm going to try and get him back into it. I'm going to drag, when you think you're out, they pull you back in.
Bro, like the best thing that any DJ can do is like saying that they're retiring and then do a comeback tour.
All of a sudden, the bookings are back on when everyone thinks you're leaving.
I haven't done that one yet. Well, let's take it right back, man. How did you and Stu first meet, and where did your passion for drum and bass come from?
So we really met through the drum and bass scene. To be honest, it was sort of the time when we were all at university, and there was huge groups of friends that were all starting to head to drum and bass parties, and we had like friends in common. And yeah, sure, I was already kind of making some music on my own, and he was already like a guitar player, and he had like a DJ setup. So a few of the after parties and stuff were at his house, and I think initially I'd said to him, I'm actually making some drum bass, and he was expecting it to be completely, and to be honest, it probably was going back. It probably was pretty rubbish, but it was enough to kind of put the interest in him to like how we're producing him. So from that point on, we kind of started messing around together and have been producing for how many years that is now? 20 plus.
Right, it's nearly it's 20 plus, isn't it? It's mad.
Yeah, I mean, like I would say, we weren't necessarily that serious about it for the first 4 or 5 years. So it has been about 15 years probably.
Yeah, that's one of the things as well. I reckon like we all kind of started getting into drum and bass production around the same time. Just some of us moved a little bit faster than others, you know what I mean? But like for you guys to have already been sort of producing for a few years before, like 3 or 4 years before we even linked up, you know?
Yeah, that's
you're just sort of bubbling away under the surface, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I think we sort of started. I remember when Concord Dawn's first album came out, we were producing stuff around then, and I remember. Like we were always kind of conscious that we wanted to wait until we thought it was at a level that when you send it out, I feel like you almost get one sort of chance, or especially back then you got like one chance at it. Like if you sent it out and people instantly weren't into it, that was their kind of first opinion of you settled.
Yeah. In fact, it takes the wind out of your sails a little bit as well.
It does, yeah. That was the other thing. It was like we didn't want to catch that criticism that early on, so I think we sort of waited like well into it, like I say, like 4 or 5 years, and probably the last year before we released anything was when we actually were kind of taking it fairly seriously.
Is that when you came up with Sun King?
Yeah, that was, yeah. I'd actually, so before that, I owned a bar at one stage, and
I remember this bar. It's the Bond Street Lodge now on corner of Bond Street.
It was
and,
called Corova Bar for a
New
while.
North.
And it was, back in that day, it never had, we didn't really have drum and bass nights there. We had like a liquid night that Serrata used to put on. If you remember, Alistair used to
Yep.
used to do the Next Level occasionally with Jeff.
That's right.
He used to do a liquid night there, but apart from that, it was more of a breaks club. And then when I sort of decided, and Stu had sort of thought, look, if we're going to do this seriously, I like sold the bar off, and the money that I made from the sale, I spent the next 6 to 9 months just being a full-time musician on like borrowed time, basically. But unfortunately,
the shit better work.
Yeah, exactly. But fortunately, like heaps of the tunes that were written in that period all got signed, and yeah, one of them being Sun King. In fact, the whole first album was written in that kind of time period.
Yeah, right. And when you guys first got the right attention, was it Clute that picked you guys up first, or who was it that really sort of from the international scene that sort of went like, right, State of Mind, that's our shit?
Yeah, it was Jeff Pressure kind of gave some of our music out to CIA. And
that's right, yes.
And so it was the Total Science sort of link up. But we also had
right.
We'd been talking on AIM to Bassline Smith, who had Techniques. So there was actually like around that time we had those two labels kind of releasing. They both those labels signed up pretty much everything that we had, and we also had Uprising. Yeah, so we had them, and the third one or fourth one was Doc Scott with 31. He was taking a few tunes as well. Yeah.
So like that time, yeah, far out, productive, man. I was just thinking, you just mentioned Aol Aim, and I was like, man, I wonder if anyone knows what the fuck we're talking about there. Aol Aim, Instant Messenger was the number one way. After MySpace, it was the number one way for people to communicate with each other and swap tunes, right?
Well, yeah. So like up until I'd never used AIM or AOL Messenger whatsoever, but that for some reason that was the way that the whole of the DMB community seemed to communicate and transfer tunes. So yeah, you pretty much would leave that on overnight because we were 12 hours. Get up in the morning and there'd be a whole bunch of messages
right.
with people either sending dubs or trying to scab dubs.
Right. I never missed the pain of waking up in the morning and seeing all your missed messages, or people, like I had open file transfers, so basically anyone could send you anything.
The auto transfer.
But if you're on shitty dial-up or something, yeah.
Yeah, it would have like... Yeah,
so you'd be like halfway through the biggest tune in the world downloading and it's stuck in your Messenger.
The shit internet connections, and also like dodgy AIM just wouldn't auto-accept. And so you'd wake up and you'd see like bad company trying to send stuff, and it's like fail. You're like, oh, awesome.
Oh, no. And again, it's like once they've done that and that's your first time around, they don't bother sending it again.
Yeah,
it's like
like the motivation levels are pretty low to chase people up to send.
Oh, yeah. It's funny. I was talking to, like, Tiki did a podcast yesterday, and we were just talking about what it was like back in the days, like just the rigmarole you have to go through to fucking actually play music or get music, you know what I mean? Just back in those days. Like, you guys came along in more of a digitized era, I guess. It was kind of like
it was still
CDJs came out when...
Yeah, it was still pretty so with that. Like that's why when we first sort of started up, we were still using vinyl, and we were finding, and we'd have one like budget CDJ on the side to play some of our tunes. And then at one of our first shows in Wellington, Serrata were involved with it, and we somehow got sponsored by them, and we started using that like fairly early on in the game. Just because we were from a vinyl background, and we found CDJs, like, it didn't really work for us, after years of practicing on vinyl. CDs just would, and like you say, they weren't that common in most clubs. Like it would be a turntable set up, and you'd have to bring your own CDJ or
all the ones that were in the club had like fucking they'd been there for 15 years and they were Denon pitchables or some shit
exactly,
like that.
Exactly. They were like Pioneer 500s or something, just with like the flip top lid and like a disc on top. Like they weren't.
I just saw Dick Johnson post a picture online of him in the boiler room in 2002 at the big day out playing. He's like three turntables and one big coffin box looking CDJ 500. It's like, oh my god.
Yeah, those things. When I remember when we first started realizing that we were going to have to use CDs more before Serrata, and just practicing on those things, I was like, fuck this. Like it was an absolute nightmare. Like using that jog wheel to try and pitch adjust.
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
Totally. Serrata changed the fucking game for me personally, man. It was like, I remember going and seeing Scott and Aroha at the office, took us out for lunch, gave me a whole bunch of goodies and a rain box and shit, and that was me away. I never looked back again. Never touched the CD again. Never really fucked with vinyl again after that either, you know?
Yeah, I remember CDs were, I used them for years, and the most annoying thing about them were, if you say you were away in Europe for a reasonable amount of time, just like the CDs starting to get out of date and like having to sit down and burn, and also trying to find that CD that had something like a tune on it if you didn't have it organized well, like it starts to get messy on a long tour. But we kind of
like I remember I'd burn like single tunes to single CDs and still lose that shit. And like someone from fucking Romania or Hungary's playing one of my tunes that I'd left behind in a club or shit like that.
There was always that kind of element when if you were dealing with a CD wallet and it was dark and you've had a few drinks and you're trying to do it quickly. You're not necessarily always going to grab them all.
I know, bro. I remember seeing like Andy turning up with a CD wallet, and it would be like everything was chronologically ordered with fucking like alphabetically ordered.
It's like you could spend the whole weekend doing that at your your DJ setup at home, and then have one party, and every single vinyl was out of its cover, and another cover, and you're just chasing this trail of covers, trying to find the right ones.
Man, bro. So like, when was it? When did you and Stu guys decide that you both wanted to start a label?
I can't remember what the moves for that for. Like, to be honest, Stu, that SO Music was a lot more Stu's sort of baby. He was he liked the idea of setting up a label, and he was always in touch with ST Holdings all the time. Actually, I think it might have been more along the lines of ST Holdings hitting us up about it, or I can't remember how it initially started. He'd have to tell you more on that, but
yeah. For those guys for people listening out there, ST Holdings was. I mentioned vinyl distribution in my podcast at the start, but ST Holdings, once vinyl distribution disappeared, ST Holdings was the next major distribution company that picked up a lot of the record labels that had been dropped by. Well, not dropped. They just lost a distribution deal because vinyl distribution had folded. So, but Chris and the guys at ST Holdings were a totally different kettle of fish. They were like almost like an incubator. They'd incubate labels and help artists get their own labels started up and distribute them worldwide and help them sign, and the whole process was awesome. They really helped us.
Yeah, they would also give you a lot of input because they would have seen the sales. I mean, I had arguments with Fierce about this, where ST Holdings would sort of have input if you sent them some singles. This is kind of near the end when the vinyl sales were starting to dive, and they were getting a bit more cautious about what they actually released on vinyl.
That's right.
They would kind of give you input on what they were seeing sales wise and things like that. And I remember Fierce having a like flip out at me over that. He's like, and Break, actually, we were on tour in Australia, and Break's label Symmetry, ST Holdings were kind of giving him advice on what they thought was, going to sell and what wasn't. And Fierce was having a flip over. He's like, they're not your A&R, this is, it's your label. At the end of the day, you decide what you want to put on your label.
Yeah, it's true, but also Dan loved fucking just being angry at something for the sake of being angry at it, you know. Shout out Danny Fierce.
Shout
if
out
you
the
ever hear
legend Dan
this,
Fierce.
Yeah. Oh man, there's been some legendary times with that guy down in New Zealand. Jesus Christ.
Yeah, he was a wild one to tour with.
One time we were flying out of Christchurch and literally the plane, it felt like it was falling out of the air. It was that first Fierce tour that I did, the Point Blank tour. And we were flying out of Christchurch and like on a bad day, the Northwestern Arc, there's like big pockets of air in just by the Southern Alps. And the plane literally fucking fell out of the sky, bro, for what felt like an eternity. And I just turned and looked and Dan's like almost in tears and he grabs me. He's like, we're gonna fucking die! I was like, chill, bro, because I've been through it a few times flying up and down to Auckland, but fuck, that was his first time getting that one, and it's a free roller coaster ride, bro.
I can imagine. I can see his face now.
Then afterwards, he was like, "Fuck, it felt like I was coming up on a pill, bruv."
I can imagine the party afterwards would have been loose.
Oh, it was. We got up to Auckland, played at Fubar.
I've cheated death.
Man, some interesting times that we've had over the years, bro. I was thinking before about, we've done quite a lot of shit. Remember when we were all part of Dirty Records and Dirty Management? So that tour of Dirty seasons that we did 2 years in a row, my God.
Yeah, man.
Some of the antics that we got up to on the road. So it's basically that State of Mind, Concord Dawn, Bulletproof, Tiki Tane, PNC, David Dallas, P Money, and Scribe for the occasional one in Christchurch or, like local MCs from around the hood.
Yeah, that was loose.
It's fucking hilarious, man. At the time we ended up in Palmerston North and we got like kicked out of the fucking Thursday night
pub quiz
night. Yeah,
we got
P Money.
This was
P Money were googling.
That was so long ago. It was like the first smartphones, and I remember we got caught cheating in the pub quiz. Because I think it was I can't remember. I think P Money might have had like a reasonably new smartphone.
Yeah, he did. He had one of those Nokia 6210s or whatever, the ones with the round
and he was
round buttons.
He was like hauling up answers in the the bathrooms.
Yeah. And his local team, the local team that were there were like, fuck, they're cheating. And then we got kicked out and you could see the guy doing the same thing under their table. But like they were locals, they had a lot on the line, That was their...
Yeah, that was
who were these Auckland cats coming through and trying to steal their bar tab.
They were really after that $50 bar tab.
Remember the next morning when we were driving to Wellington, we had to go to pick up Tiki from the hospital because he got pink eye.
Yeah, I remember he came back with pamphlets to tell us all to quit smoking.
That's right.
Just handed them out one by one.
I know. Halfway out of Palmerston North and P Money power chunders in the truck, in the van.
We hadn't even done a show at that stage. That was just...
I know. Right.
That was that tour, man. That like kind of cemented our friendships with all the rap dudes. Like it was first time.
It did, man, big time.
Yeah, like it was the first time we kind of met P Money, PNC, Dave Dallas, and then obviously me and Sam became like really, really close.
You guys have got super tight relationship. You guys have been working together on all sorts of different shit for years now, right?
Like during that tour is when we kind of talked about doing like a collab together, and that's when City on Fire was written pretty much after that first tour of Dirty. Yeah, man. Yeah, and since then we've like even like right up until this pandemic, I recorded some vocals for him the other day, like just before the latest lockdown. So,
oh shit,
yeah, it was one of his groomsmen at his wedding. So, all from that first tour of Dirty, we became tight.
Yep. Shout out PNC,
Shout
man.
out
He's
Sam.
fucking easily one of my all-time favorite New Zealand rappers. His bars are just second to none, man.
Yeah, when I'm recording him, I like, I miss a lot of the references, even though I'm hearing just the straight vocal track, will just go over my head, and it'll be like later when we're hanging out having drinks, I'll be like, oh, I actually just got that bar. That he's like, oh, yeah. Like his lyrics are incredible.
His basketball references are on fire as well, isn't it?
There's a lot of sports references for sure.
Yeah, there's a lot of sports references.
He said that one day when he was recording. He's like, man, I make it sound like I used to be a baller or something. But
No, but most rappers are fans of NBA or fucking baseball or football, you know what I mean? So
that's it. Usually is. It's like, it seems that way. It's like ballers want to be rappers, rappers want to be ballers.
Bro, let's take it back, bro. Like, when did you guys first start touring? When did you first start making inroads? Because realistically, you guys have been probably out of all the drum and bass artists in New Zealand, maybe alongside probably equal to the Upbeats. You guys have been the most prolific on the world stage. You know, like you're constantly touring. Stu sort of stays at home, then you guys take turns, right? But
yeah,
when was it sort of that one moment when you realized, oh shit, this shit's taken off and we're going to have to start going touring?
I think it actually took maybe like I think everyone thinks it's going to be as soon as your release comes out that you're instantly going to be touring, but it takes a while. Like I think Sun King had blown up for like a year and a half, 2 years before we got the kind of first international we did Australia before that, but before we hit Europe, I think it took at least a year and a half, 2 years after that. So I think 2006 roundabout, we sort of did our first European tour, and we both went over together and did like 6 weeks of pretty full-on shows. And then since then, it's been like every year. I mean, it from about 2013 around Eat the Rich time, it's sort of ramped up again. Like we were going maybe twice a year each, but now it's sort of closer to the 3 or 4 a year.
That's a lot of fucking work, man.
Yeah, it is. But the shows in Europe, man, it is 100% worthwhile. Like they're, especially for our sound, you know, like we make darker, heavier stuff, and that's not necessarily. I mean, it freaks out a lot of New Zealanders. I'll be honest with you, because they're used to.
You won't hear your sound in London, but you go to Eastern Europe, places like Prague, places like fucking Hungary. The further east you go, the bigger the New Zealand sound is. It's fucking strange, man.
Exactly, and so I mean, out those ways, when we play sets, we don't really have to, kind of pull any punches. Whereas over here, we don't play half of the kind of neuro that we have, because like the New Zealand audiences have kind of like, you know, some of the new cats who are into it have come up on like a different sound to that, or they don't like it. It freaks people the fuck out who don't know what neuro is, you know.
Yeah, I'll be honest, like I listen to what is classed neuro these days, and it does not sound like neurofunk in any way, shape or form to me. You know, it feels like it's lost the funk if it's done anything. It's just gone grungier and more rockier, you know?
I feel you on that. Like there is, or just super technical without any sort of groove to lock onto or any sort of funk.
Yeah.
Like it's become like maths.
Yeah, I kind of started drawing the line at that, you know, because fuck, who was my mates? It was like Face and Misanthrope, you know what I mean? And like all love to the boys, but I could not keep up with the Joneses when it came to trying to compete, not even compete, but just make music that you would reference against theirs and go, I fucking quit. I'm done. You know what I mean?
Yeah. This is, that's the thing that is kind of one of the trade-offs that's sort of being made at the moment. It's like in order to have like those clinical mixdowns, a lot of people they'll give up like parts of the funk, you know, because you can't have that. You know, you can't have that kind of untidiness in order to get that sort of precision. Which that's
what I loved about the looseness of the old stuff. You know
that's
it. It was built on a groove, and it was all about the vibe, and it wasn't about fucking build up and breakdown and then big drop and rinse and repeat. It was about telling a story and a tune, you know. But fuck, man, time moves on, musical trends move on, people's attention spans move on, you know. Like fuck, people these days. How long's the mix last these days in the club? You know what I mean? Like
we were just saying we're like
to a minute.
We were kind of saying that like when we were working on these latest singles and stuff. We were like, what's the? Do we even need a second drop anymore? I was like, does anyone does anyone even play that?
So, like, you know, as mentioned, sort of the further east you go in Europe, especially, because it took you guys quite a while to get onto the US scene, right? But during that time, you'd sort of dominated fucking Europe, and then I remember seeing you guys sending back videos of you guys playing in fucking gigantic warehouses in places like St. Petersburg or Moscow and shit like that, bro. I was like, it looked like bucket list kind of shit.
Yeah, man. Like, it still is. Like I went, we were lucky. We had a really good Russian agent, Rita, who was, shout out Rita.
Oh, Rita, yep. Shout out Rita.
She was really into our music and was really like helpful in us getting tons of shows out there, and played some wild parties out there and some weird as fuck parties as well. I won't lie to you. Like I played this one in particular was it was, so when I got out I can't, like, literally can't remember the name of the city, but I remember I got out of the airport and guy picked me up and I was like, okay, you know, what sort of, how big is the show tonight? Like what sort of numbers? And he was like, 20, 30. And I was like, oh, do you mean like 200, 300? And he goes, no, 20 or 30. And it was like a private party that these dudes were really into our music. And they like booked us just so they could kind of watch us DJ. I played like maybe 10, maybe, not even that. Like I probably played about 4 or 5 songs, and these dudes were 10 guys were just standing in like around the CDJs, just looking at me do it. And then after about like 4 or 5 tunes, they were like, okay, that's enough. Now we want to drink with you. And then they just went,
what the fuck?
Yeah. So I just sat in this booth with these dudes and just drank for the rest of the
Were these guys like mafia or some shit?
I don't know. You're like young ballers who are like, they just want to ask like production questions and shit. And so
tonight we bring New Zealand DJ State of Mind, because I like good vodka and good beats.
Yeah, it was fucking bizarre, man. It was like, at first I was like, if you guys are gonna stand there for this whole like set, this is gonna be fucking whack for all of us.
Oh my god! No, but you would have also played sort of like what 20 to 30,000 raves, people size raves at St. Petersburg and Moscow and shit like that as well, wouldn't you?
Yeah, those Pirate Station and World of Drum Bass parties are next level. I think I did one. So the end of 2019. So in October 2019, I was in Moscow for a World of Drum Bass, and that was about 8 to 15,000, I think.
Jeez.
Yeah, and they fucking go in on the production for those shows as well. This one had like intelligent lighting all the way across the whole room, so it could have all these beams just go straight down on top of the crowd, which looked like steel bars coming, you know, vertically out of the roof.
Oh, sick.
It looked fucking ridiculous. Like they really go in on that shit.
Man, did you? Have you crossed paths with the boys? Like, you know, the Upbeats.
Yeah.
Remember when Dosey was touring, all that sort of stuff, like on tour overseas? Do you guys get to see each other much?
Yeah, quite a reasonable amount. Like I see the Upbeats quite a lot. We end up on the same shows quite a lot. And Trev, we seem to hit Europe at slightly different times to him. So
right.
I think I've, not for the last few years, but I have done shitloads of shows with them out there as well. But not the last few years. I've done more with, I did quite a lot with Dylan while he was living in London. Probably played like 3 or 4 in the last couple of years with him over there.
Man.
But not so much Trev in the last couple of years.
Yeah, right. Sure. And what else has been going on, bro? Like, obviously, you guys put an album out not long ago, right?
We put one out, what was that, Land of the Blind, which was, I don't know, I'm getting confused with years and shit now. It's just like lockdown has not, it's like time has just gone into some weird infinite loop for me.
How is lockdown affecting you? Like, are you finding yourself being able to be creative, or are you just like, fuck, this time around, I can't be bothered?
The first lockdowns and shit, I was really kind of motivated, and this latest one, because I fear that it's going to be, I don't think we'll be doing shows until like December in Auckland or North Island. For some reason, I just get that feeling that we're going to have they're going to take it pretty cautious up until probably New Year. So just that thought has left me fairly unmotivated, I got to say.
Have you noticed that trickling into your bookings for the summer season and shit already?
We've got quite a lot of stuff that was during that, like up until December, that is all trying to move now, but it's really hard to kind of rebook those when we really have no idea when we're going to be back up and running.
Yeah.
So we've still got heaps of shows coming up when we're allowed to, but what dates they're going to get moved to, I have no idea. Realistically, I'm thinking like late November, December at the earliest, but I might be just pessimistic.
Yeah, I'd hope for your sake that we can be a bit more optimistic, because that's fucking long, bro, and that's a lot of artists losing a lot of money. Like Jeremy and Dylan just dropped an album on Friday. They can't do jack shit.
I really
to
feel
celebrate it or tour it. You know,
it's
I
really
so
feel
terrible
for them on that one, man. That's just fucking cruel timing.
I know, you put that much work and love and effort into an album, and like I love it. It's probably one of their best in my eyes.
Yeah,
and
it's fucking sick.
It's for me, it's just like I've already had to message them both and say, "Fuck, bro, condolences on this."
That is brutal. I mean,
timing,
the only positive is that maybe people who are at home have more time to kind of catch the album, and so.
Well, that would be fucking awesome, right? Like, I mean, that's the whole reason we're doing this podcast, is because this is basically going to be keeping people company who can't go out raving, who may or may not be interested in finding out a little bit more about what makes people like you tick, what sort of the foundations of the scene were, and things that people might not know about New Zealand drum and bass, because there's. Like I say, there was so much fucking work that went on in the scene from 1995 right through to present day, but a lot of these cats who are just coming through now, who are just discovering drum and bass, don't know anything about the history of it, you know what I mean?
No, probably not.
New Zealand's history is rich, man. It's super rich, like, you know.
Yeah, that's it. Like that is totally it. Like we've had such a flourishing scene for a long time. I've seen it have some pretty major dips, but that was almost more related to the amount of cool clubs we had than anything else.
Yeah, it was true.
When we started losing nightclubs in Auckland, Wellington, Christchurch had an earthquake to deal with. It was that during that period, it was pretty tough. But the music has always been ridiculously strong in New Zealand.
That night of the Christchurch earthquake, me, you, and Maddie C played in Dunedin, didn't we?
We were down.
Remember that?
Oh, you guys, yeah. I wasn't there for that one. I think it was.
Was it just Stu?
I think it was disco. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
Because I know that we were down there for the sound clash with the Upbeats around September after those earthquakes. I remember we were standing. It was after the first one, I think, which didn't kill anyone and did, but
it just softened it up for the next one.
Just softened it up for the next one. Yeah, I remember we were checking into one of the hotels in Dose, was the promoter Chris, and I remember me and Jeremy were standing underneath the big chandelier when they had some shutters, and he goes, "Oh shit!" He's like, "You guys, honestly, move." It's like, yeah, sorry, the earthquake virgins here.
Oh my god!
I mean, Jeremy probably wasn't. He lived in Welly for long enough. I
still never felt. I felt one in Ponsonby once. What the fuck? And it was like located out in Mission Bay kind of way, and it sounded like a truck going down the street. But that was about it. I've never felt an earthquake. I reckon I would bitch like a little girl, bro.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, Christchurch, man. That was like the impact on mental health when every day you were getting those kind of tremors.
Oh fuck! It would be too much.
Aftershocks. It'd be fucking horrific, man.
That's why Christchurch is lucky to have a scene, bro. Like a lot of those people stayed there and stuck it out, man. Like a lot of people left. Yeah, I remember we did the Nil by Air album tour with, we brought Nympho over for it. And I remember that's right. Shout out Bardo.
Shout out Bardo. We had to do the album release out in Hornby or something. And it was like, there wasn't a lot happening because there was no clubs anywhere. And I remember there was pretty much one of the only events going down that night in Christchurch. And I still remember that noise control and the police and everything, being called out or, having to make their presence felt. I was just like, fuck, man. I was like, hey, hasn't everyone been through enough? Can't you just let them have one fucking night?
No, there's probably some grumpy ass neighbour kicking around the hood who's like, fuck this noise.
So we'll just take it to the club that's under rubble.
Yeah. Rest in peace, the Ministry. Rest in peace, the Bedford as well, man.
Yeah, fuck, some wicked venues disappeared during that time.
I know. You were saying before about fucking venues disappearing as well. I think you're referring to like Studio 9 and Sub 9, Fubar, obviously the Ministry and shit, you know. There was some seminal clubs, bro. Like, I just remember some of those nights that we spent down at Fubar on Queen Street. Jesus H. Christ, man.
Honestly, some of those nights, and like some of the best sets I've ever seen, still to this day, I think, in
Absolutely
the old Foo on Queen Street.
Yeah,
Just
the
ridiculous.
tiny one, man. That was the one. To me, I liked that more than the one that was up on Foo's End, up on Albert Street, you know?
Yeah, same.
It was just so much
even
more
back
intimate.
when it was the Ministry, I preferred,
I bet you preferred it when it was the staircase, bro.
I got to shout out Darren King, man. Darren King had that sound down on Queen Street. Like, sounding so incredible.
That was, quite possibly one of the best sound setups in the country for the time, easily.
Yeah, like I remember romanticizing about it at the time, but having been around the world and played in a lot of places, fuck, that club stacked up. Like, I now understand why so many of those internationals came out and just loved playing in that room.
Yeah.
And would come out and just play, you know, way longer sets than they normally would.
Yeah, they got to test out all their proper tunes properly and get the proper response.
Exactly. Yeah,
I just like being able to sort of like reach down and high five cats when a tune drops because he's like, yeah, you know.
Can still see that blue glow now.
Yeah, no, that's just having an image, right? It's like shout out Gaz and shout out the whole whole Foo crew.
The Foo Zen family.
Yeah, man, legendary. Fuck, that was fucking epic. I mean, like, I loved it because, like, you know, a lot of those international DJs would stop through Fubar and play there, sort of like, you know, like for a Foo's Christmas party or pre-New Year's on their way to Australia. So you get some fucking amazing acts come through just for a one-night set in Auckland only, you know?
Oh, yeah, 100%.
Like fucking Marky on a Sunday night, just quietly,
man, after the big day out.
$15. Yeah, after the big day out, you know? Yeah, a lot of those, I love the way that a lot of those artists revered Fubar and just Solomon as well, Solomon Cooler on the door.
Yeah, it's like so many epic memories from that club. Like that, that club really kind of cemented my love for drum and bass. Like the sound system did the music justice. The nights were incredible. Everything like ran slightly later back then, so you could have, you know, internationals come over. Yeah, and if the artist was feeling it, they could just keep rolling till like 7 or 8 in the morning, you know, which
totally.
Often like Groove Rider or Doc Scott, they often would, which you know, just made incredibly legendary parties.
Yeah, that's what I was saying as well. Is like, I think when a lot of those DJs, when they would come out, I think the scene had developed and there had been such a rapport with those UK DJs that had played out here that everyone was on their fucking A game when they came to New Zealand. It was like, and because those guys would play those sets that were just fucking hours and hours long, you know, the New Zealand crowd was treated to a fucking masterclass education. And
100%.
It just kept on like developing the scene, and it wasn't just in Auckland. It was in Christchurch. It was in Wellington. It was in Dunedin. You know. Yeah,
every city had its like its kind of sick club, wicked sound system that was doing everything music justice.
Bath Street in Dunedin, man. Bath Street in Dunedin. Yeah, that was one of the most fun places to play.
Do you know what? That was one of the clubs that I stopped. One of the reasons I stopped using Serrata or any, I just didn't want to have a laptop in the club anymore because of that club. I remember it used to get so fucking hot in there that my laptop was just getting fried. Like the ceilings were soaking. It was like 200 degrees in there. And I remember to try and stop the laptop fucking up, we got like a box full with ice from the bar, and it was like the laptop was sitting above that to try and help it cool, and the ice was melted within the first couple of seconds. Then you just had geezers in the front row trying to grab it to have a drink out of the so that was like one of the reasons I eventually did switch to CDs. I was like, man, fuck this, I can't be taking laptops into safer, or we'd leave some part of our Serrata kit in some random city.
Oh yeah, that was always one. Your control tone CD or your fucking box, God forbid.
Yeah, exactly. And like, you know, early on when it wasn't as popular as it is now, if you left part of your kit in a small town in Switzerland and you were now in Germany somewhere, you were in big trouble.
Yeah, totally.
If you're trying to say to the local dudes, "Oh, has anyone here got Serrata?" They'd be like, "Nah."
What?
So you'd end up having to burn CDs anyway.
What do you think about the current state of drum and bass, bro? Like musically,
It's definitely got like a more of a poppy sort of element to it, which I'm not hating on it whatsoever. It's not necessarily my kind of cup of tea, but seeing how
that's definitely helped improve the popularity of the music, right?
100%.
If your girlfriend can sing along to a tune, it means you get to go to the rave, right? So.
It's definitely increased the popularity of drum and bass, which has been a great thing. So in that respect, big it up, but it's not. I mean, we've never kind of made stuff like that, and we don't really play stuff like that. So like I was kind of touched on before, the one thing is that kids who have heard that assume that's drum and bass, come to see us play, and realize that there's different types of drum and bass.
There's very different types of drum and bass.
Yeah, which ain't a bad thing as well. Like there's
no, but I mean, I guess like if you look back at it, and historically, people have always entered drum and bass and been absorbed by the sound, and then they split off to their favorite subgenres. You know what I mean?
100%. So it was talking to Alex Perez about this shit, and he was saying that he noticed that in his sets, the kind of 140 stuff has really been what's popping off in his sets at the moment.
Really?
And we were kind of relaying that, a lot of kids who've just got into drum and bass probably weren't around for the sort of dubstep craze, and so
it's true. It's a good point.
That music to them is probably all that kind of deeper stuff is like a whole new thing again.
Yeah, totally. And honestly, like, what better way to be introduced to 140 than the stuff that Alex plays, right? Because it's fucking phenomenal.
Man, he's got some ridiculous music.
Between him and Ivy Lab, that whole 140 genre. And to be honest, man, like I've been hearing some fire 140 coming through from a lot of obscure artists as well as new and emerging artists recently, and it's just like, wow, that scene might be on its way back.
100%. That's kind of what he was touching on the other day. He was saying that he definitely feels like it's on its way back.
Shit, I might have to dust off my old my buttons. Jump on that bandwagon.
Those money train drums.
Yeah, I tell you what, bro. I still fuck around trying to make DMB and stuff like that, and I get good vibes going and shit like that. But then once you get to the stage where the vibes finish and you have to actually track the whole thing out and EQ and like just make this thing into an actual song. That's when I'm like, you know what, I've had enough now.
Yeah, do you know what though, man? Like the other kind of parts of drum and bass, there's like the sounds that's kind of huge in the UK at the moment. A lot of that production has kind of gone back to those like values that were sort of held high back in the day. Like just really cool old breaks, tidied up a bit, and still a bit dirty.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of stuff like Breakage and Shy FX, fucking Break,
exactly.
Like DLR. I mean, that Bristol sound's always maintained that fucking like quality edge to drum and bass.
Funk,
So, but yeah, there's definitely some awesome shit coming through as well. Like, there's artists like Millbrook and Hillsdom, who I'm hopefully going to be having on the podcast in not too distant future. But there's some very cool ones coming out in New Zealand, like Burnsy's been getting some heat, man. Dudes making moves and all that as well.
Man, I mixed down a tune by Burnsy and Tiki the other day, which is sounding sick.
That's literally what Tiki was talking about on his podcast as well. Yeah, well, I was going to say, who are you looking at the moment? Who's sort of taking you by surprise, not just locally but internationally?
I would say guys like Mysela, really liking some of his new stuff. I really like stuff. Pythias has just kind of sent me a whole bunch of his new album, which is sounding ridiculous. And then there's some guys who are doing kind of like, I've only heard a couple of tunes by these dudes, but I really like what I've heard so far. There was a dude called Rilliam who did a couple of things for Blackout that are like just crazy kind of rhythms and just really cool ideas.
Yep.
Who else am I feeling? Whenever I do this, I can never actually remember.
I know. It's hard,
names off the top of my head.
So yeah, I mean, there's definitely been some artists that have been coming out that I've been feeling as well, man. It's nice to hear a fresh take on that techier side. Like, it is getting a little bit looser, and the production values are still there, but some of the funk isn't getting compromised. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Well, it's not. You know what? It's not the funk that's getting compromised. Maybe that is getting lost in the production, but the melody side of things is holding that end of it up. You know what I mean?
I really feel like if there was people start combining a bit of that kind of UK sort of drum sound that's around at the moment, and with some of the kind of neuro elements, we'll be back to almost where it was early 2000s.
Yeah.
Like, if you started combining those two things, we could quite easily have that sound sort of making a massive comeback, which I was talking to Stu about this. I sort of felt like that might be the way it's moving.
Yeah, right.
I got sent a new single by Tom Piper, has done a new single with Andy C, where he's done the vocals. And having listened to that, like, Andy's kind of trying to bring back a bit more of the Ram trilogy sort of sound.
Nice.
So, and I'm all about that idea.
Yeah, totally, bro. I mean, that was an era. That whole era was a scene in
That
itself.
was totally an era.
Yeah. That Terminal EP, just the tunes on there, man.
Just molten beats as well,
Molten
man.
beats, yeah.
Had listened to that album again the other day. It's so fucking sick still.
Yeah,
man.
I did the same the other day for Magnetic, Johnny L.
Oh yeah, sick.
Just had to, like, something compelled me to find it and fucking listen to it, and I was like, that's why I fell in love with drum and bass. Like that the drum work on C Red, the drum work on.
He's a strange character, that dude, right? Like, I never ever got to see him play live or anything. He just sort of.
No, I never saw Johnny L play in New Zealand.
He just like, he would. It was like he was in his own kind of scene or bubble. He never really.
I think it was because he went to a major label straight away, like FFRR, and then fucking.
Is that what happened?
Yeah, I think that's why he blew up big time. But
I remember he was one of the first drum bass CDs I owned, because back when you would hit up things like Real Groovy or True Tone, even back in the day, there was like fuck all drum bass CDs around, but Johnny L, like you say, because he was on a major, his albums were in the bins.
Yeah, totally. It's funny, my kid he was at JB Hi-Fi the other day before lockdown, and he was going through the CD bins, and he found one of my old albums. I was like, it was under B. I was like, what's that for? Bargain.
we used to do that, because we used to go, we were quite, sample based back in the day, and we would always go sample hunting in Real Groovy, and we'd always go and check the bargain bins, like the CDs, always go and check the S section to see how many of the albums were going to get sent back.
Yeah.
And if there was fuck all left, there were like celebration.
Bro, how good was it? I used to be able to rock into Real Groovy with a mini disc and just fucking plug it into the aux on the amp that they had plugged into their turntable, and I'd be able to pick up any record out of any bin and sample it and go home with a bag just full of samples. It was fucking wicked, bro.
That's the pirate's life, old school pirate.
I know. I mean, they weren't aware that I'd plugged in a fucking mini disc player, but,
there's some proper risk to that piracy.
No, totally. Well, sick, bro. Fuck, it's been awesome catching up with you, and I'm
Likewise,
sorry lockdown's taking it out of you this time around. I hope you find some motivation, and I definitely really hope that, for everyone's sake, this shit doesn't drag on like long COVID, and fucking you guys can actually get back on the road. And I mean,
here's hoping, man.
It's dark times, desperate measures. You know what I mean?
That it is.
Excuse the pun, my friend.
Awesome. Thanks, bro. Thanks for
having me.
All right,
brother. Thanks so much, mate. And I think as this podcast progresses as well, we'll get you and Disco Stew into the studio together on camera and do a full episode.
Cool.
Nice one, brother. Take care.
Cheers, bro. Easy.
You've been listening to the History of New Zealand Drum and Bass series. For episode schedules and podcast information, follow us at NZDMB Podcast on Facebook and Instagram, with new episodes weekly on all major podcasting platforms. This is the History of New Zealand Drum and Bass.